My name is Leah Newman, and we're going to be talking about how to create balance between your life, your personal life, and your work life. Now, before we get started, there's a couple administrative notes. First of all, I would like to ask for your full participation today. I'd like you to play full out. So what that means is, for example, when I ask a question, I would really love it if you would answer aloud. Is that cool? Yes. The second piece, thank you very much, I appreciate that. The second piece, and I know it's blasphemy in this room, but I'm going to ask you to put away all your cell phones and your computers. What? Yes. I'd like you to give yourself the gift of the next 45 minutes. Now, I know that seems a little odd in this room, but this is the thing. In my private coaching, the subject that we're about to cover usually takes multiple sessions. And I'm condensing it down into these next 45 minutes. We are only going to have time to scratch the surface. So I really need your full attention and your full participation. Deal? Yes. Everybody ready to play full out? Yes. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Are you ready to play full out? Yes. Outstanding. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. My mentor, Tony Robbins, talks about everything that you do is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. Today, I'm going to offer you two tools that are going to address both sides of this equation that you can use in both your personal life and your professional life to not only create balance between the two, but also create massive success in both. Pretty cool, hey? So the first thing that we're going to address is that psychology piece. How you show up to a situation drastically affects how you interact with people, how you perceive the situation, and even the outcome. So this is where it's time to play. Is everybody ready?
Yes.
Okay. So while you're sitting in your seat, I want you to think for a second about a time when you went to a class. Maybe you didn't like the instructor, maybe you didn't like the subject matter, or maybe you were just plain bored. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I want you to show me what that looked like right now in your chair. Show me what that looked like. Okay? So for the viewers at home, I see some people kind of leaning back in their chair. I see one dude almost snoozing. I see people kind of leaning and putting their head on their hand. While you're in that position, again, think back to that time. Think back to that time when you were bored and you were feeling inattentive to what the speaker was saying. Okay? What were some thoughts that were going through your head? What were some thoughts going through your head? Like maybe the person is incompetent?
Yeah.
Yeah, what else?
I don't need this.
I don't need this. I'll never use it. I got better things to do.
Lunch.
It's time for lunch. Yep, what time is it? So can you see that you're already starting to go down the drain, spiral the drain, and go down further into boredom and feeling more inattentive? What are some of the things that you would say out loud, either, well, they could be out loud or even in your head, of, you know, that further reinforce this feeling of boredom or inattentiveness? What are some things? I heard I don't need this before. That's something you might say out loud. What else?
Noting other people that are bored and inattentive.
Yep, you're looking around the room. So some more actions that you might do with your body is rolling your eyes even. What else? What are some other things? Ooh, I heard a sigh. Yeah, like, oh, really? More? Okay, so now everybody, again, I want you to play full out. This is not halfway. All right, play full out, show me bored again. Get those thoughts in your mind. There we go. Maybe say some of those things. Come on, turn up that intensity even more. More bored, more inattentive. It sucks, right? And do you feel yourself going down the drain? Absolutely. There we go, and you start talking. Okay, so we don't want that anymore, so snap out of it. Awesome. Shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is think of a time when you were riveted by a speaker. You couldn't wait to hear everything she had to say. You were so excited you wanted to learn more. Show me what that looks like. There we go. There we go. So I see some people, they're leaning forward in their chair. Some people might be writing, taking notes. How's your breath? It's kind of shorter and like almost impatient, right? What are some of the thoughts going through your mind? This is amazing. Mind blown. Fantastic. What about, oh my gosh, she's freaking fantastic. Yeah? Anything else? I can't write fast enough. So we've kind of covered both thoughts and the words in that moment. Yeah? Okay, so now do it again. Come on. Do it again. Anticipated, you're excited to learn. I hope right now you're getting the sense for the contrast there. It's really all what you're doing with your body, your thoughts, and your words that really influence how you show up to a particular situation. Yes? Okay, let's practice one more time. Go back to board. Go back to board. When I say snap, I want you to go to inattentive and excited. Snap. Nice. Nice. How's that feel? A lot better, yeah? Awesome. So you're probably sitting there going, okay, this is really great information, but how on earth does this apply to me? Yes? Yes? Yes. So as a busy entrepreneur or a professional, how many times have you maybe come home, walked in the door and gone, I'm exhausted? Has anybody done that before? I know I have. Or maybe you kind of shuffle in to work on Monday morning and go, ugh, I hate Mondays. Has anybody done that? Yeah, do you think that might influence your interactions there at all? What's the quality of your interactions with your family when you go home and you say, ugh, I'm exhausted? What is the quality of the decisions you make on a Monday morning when you're saying, I hate Mondays, and you're kind of shuffling around? The truth is, you can change your state just like that. You can show up to a situation and really put your best foot forward just like that. The difference between bored, let me see it, bored, inattentive, and snap. Excited to learn and attentive. Just that fast. Yes? So this psychology piece is really critical. Again, going back to the quote from Tony Robbins, 80% psychology, 20% mechanics. It's pretty powerful stuff when you decide to use it. And it really is a decision, isn't it? Because we've been conditioned to do this. And in that moment, we are conditioned to just go ahead and do that. But the truth is, in that moment, you have a choice. You can choose instead to walk in the door and go, honey, I'm home. Kids, let's play. What kind of impact would that have on your interactions with your family then? Or what if on Monday morning you walked in and went, yes, I got this. I can do anything. This is going to be an amazing day. What's the quality of your decisions then?
Better.
Much better. Drastic difference. Can you see that? Awesome. So now let's move over to the second piece, that mechanics piece or strategy piece, if you will. Peter Drucker is quoted as saying, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So today I'm going to give you a tool that's going to allow you to look at your life as a whole and to measure a few things. That might seem a little tricky, but it's not as hard as you think. So just to give you an idea of the direction that we're going, this is what's called a circle of life. If you've ever been in coaching, you've probably seen it before. I use it quite often. It's a great tool to look at your life as a whole. In my private practice, I've also found really great success at looking at specific areas. So for the people in this audience, maybe you'll use it to look at your business. Or maybe you have a weight loss goal and you want to look at the different areas that comprise that particular goal as well. Great success there. And we'll talk about how to use it in that way as well. So now's the time when you get to start writing. Are you ready? So the first section of this is, you notice on the wheel, there's different sections of the wheel. What I want you to do is start by identifying what are those different sections for you. So on this chart here, I've done personal, business, and professional. For the purposes of our exercise today, I would like it if everybody started with a personal circle of life. It's called circle of life, wheel of life. It's been called both. But I'd like everybody to start with identifying the areas for their own personal wheel of life. These are the categories that I've used. So in preparing the presentation today, I thought about coming up with some hypothetical. That doesn't work at presentations. It's always better if you use personal experience. So I went ahead and did up my personal circle of life for this week, for me. Okay? So these are the sections, the different areas of my life. Next, on your piece of paper, I'd like you to draw a circle of life and label it. Now, on my circle of life, I've identified 8 key areas. Maybe you only have 6, and that's why I didn't want you to write it before. Doesn't really matter. Usually 6 to 8 is ideal. Okay? So whenever you're ready, just look up, and then I know you're ready to move on to the next step. You can feel free to use my categories if you want. That's fine. Plagiarism is allowed in this case.
Sorry, I haven't used a pen in a while.
Yeah, I know.
I'm struggling.
He said he hasn't used a pen in a while. What is this thing? Fantastic. And then once you've made your circle of life and you've labeled each section, the next thing I'd like you to do is write down a few key activities or interactions that you have in that area. Okay, so what does it mean to participate in that area of your life? And I'll just put mine up here as an example. So this is my wheel of life that I have entered in the different categories, and underneath I've listed key interactions or key activities associated with each. Does anybody have any questions on this part? No questions? We're good? Okay, we'll move on then. So next, what I want you to do is rate yourself in each of these areas on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 meaning the center of the circle, meaning epic failure, which I've never seen a 0. And then 10 meaning monumental, colossal success. Okay? Epic fail to monumental success. Give yourself a number. And then what you're going to do is fill in that section, kind of like a pie chart. And it might look something like this. Making sense? So think about it for a second. If I were to take this wheel and put it on my car and try and go down the street, this isn't too bad, but it's still a bit of a bumpy ride, wouldn't you say? And that's that imbalance that we feel in our life. So from there, what we can now do is we can look at those different areas and we can commit to some small actions to create some balance, to improve in those areas that are the bigger dip in the wheel, if you will. So for example, for me, in the area of health, it's only a 7, where I want to get to an 8. I would love to have everything be an 8 or higher. So in the area of health, I've committed to reducing gluten. And in my celebration area, I once read a book, Magic. Has anybody done that book before? Magic. It was written by the lady that wrote The Secret. And one thing that I found really useful was she prescribes using a method of writing out 10 gratitudes every day. And I found that just so powerful and really appreciating everything in my life. So I've committed to doing that again. And then I'm kind of sort of cheating. I'm able to combine 2 with personal growth and my finances. There's this great book called Money, A Love Story. And so not only am I going to be able to grow personally, but I'm going to be able to address some of the issues that I have going on in my finances as well. And last, for my spirituality, I always feel really connected when I go on a nature walk. So now I've decided that once a week, I'm going to commit to going to a nature walk so I can kind of feel a little bit more fulfilled in that area of my life as well. Is that all making sense? Have you all written down what you're committed to this week in each of these areas? Yes? So again, you're going to, taking this tool forward, what you would do is every week, you would do this wheel of life again. You would commit to small actions and you would check in with it at a regular basis. So for example, mine is a weekly wheel of life. So I'm going to check in with it daily to make sure that the things that I've committed to are at the forefront of my mind and that I'm making plans to make sure that I implement them every day. Yes? Then you're also going to want to make sure that you set your environment up for success. For example, I've decided to reduce gluten. I've committed to that. So why on earth would I go buy pasta this week? It wouldn't make sense, would it? Set yourself up for success. Or you could do like one of my clients. She was committed to drinking more water. So she made sure she had a bottle similar to this one in every single room. She also had blue Post-it notes like on her mirror, on her computer, on the refrigerator door, everywhere to remind her to drink more water. It was just a little reminder. Or you can even do things like set an appointment with yourself in your calendar. People in this room, I'm guessing that you have a lot of meetings. And you make time for everybody else and everything else. When was the last time you set a meeting with yourself for something that you needed to do in your life? Just a thought. And last, you're going to want to reevaluate at a regular interval. Again, mine is a weekly plan, so for me that means every single week I'm going to set aside time so that I can do this again and make sure that I'm continually advancing in my goals. Any questions there? Fantastic. So again, everything we do is 80% psychology, 20% mechanics. And by utilizing these two tools that I've given you today, wow, you can really blow it out of the park. Master your life, create massive success, and most importantly, balance. Pretty cool. However, wait, there's more. I love infomercials. There's more. The last piece is story, or the meaning that you assign to things. To be able to create massive change, you have to show up well. You have to know how to create this change, but also it's the meaning that you assign to things. Let me give you an example. So a couple weeks ago, my boyfriend and I were having a discussion, and he was driving home from work, and we were talking. It was a little tense, but it was no big deal. Not a big deal conversation at all. But in the middle of the conversation, he said, I gotta go, and he hung up the phone. In my head, I made it mean he was mad at me, he wanted to break up with me, and by the time this poor man got home, I'm sobbing, crying, no. I made it mean something awful and terrible. And the truth is, he was just in traffic. He needed to pay attention. But I gave it this awful meaning, and so I felt horrible. Is that his fault? No, it's the meaning that I gave it. Let's apply this to business. You have a business meeting. It doesn't go so great, or at least you think it doesn't. And they walk away and say, hey, let's have a meeting next week. If you give it the meaning that this deal is done, how do you show up? Yeah, you sit back in your chair to act all bored, maybe lethargic. Maybe you don't engage with that person as much as you might normally if you thought the deal was on. If you give it a meaning, you're going to act and behave accordingly. Is this making sense to everybody?
Yes.
So when you combine all three of these, this is some powerful stuff. Really powerful stuff. You're showing up as your absolute best self in every situation. You have a plan for identifying the areas for improvement and how to get there. And you're holding yourself accountable each and every week to move forward in those areas. And most importantly, you're creating a situation where you're not giving it negative meanings. You're giving things positive meanings, empowering meanings. So you can really maximize every single situation. Cool? Absolutely. So this is all going to create this balanced life, and eventually we want to get to this, something that looks like this, where we're equal and balanced in all areas. Now you'll notice it's still not at a 10. And I will tell you that there is always, always room for improvement. Maybe you have a really great relationship in your life. But when was the last time you bought her flowers and really blew her mind? Or surprised her with a date or something like that? In business, You know, you have a lot of employees that work for you, and they're used to just coming to work and doing their job. When was the last time you really blew their mind with some sort of team building exercise and just took it that 2 millimeters difference and made it that much better? So if we pull it all together, this is what it might look like. You start off with your circle of life each and every week. You evaluate yourself, you set goals for yourself, and you hold yourself accountable. There's lots of different ways you can do it yourself and hold yourself accountable, or you can share it with others. Maybe you have a spouse or a partner that you'd like to share it with in your personal life or your professional life. And by the way, if you do have a business partner, this is a great activity for you to do together, to look at your business as a whole and hold each other accountable for the goals that you've set for your business. Next, you're going to decide how you want to show up in each area. So if you look at those different sections of the wheel that you identified, maybe you need to show up to them in a different state for each one. How I'm going to show up in my relationship with my boyfriend is very different than how I'm going to show up with a coaching client, or how I'm going to show up to my fitness workout. So maybe think about that. Maybe you need to think about, what is my body doing? What are my thoughts? What are the words that I'm using when I'm in each of those situations? Again, so you can really show up as your best self. Next, you're going to root out any kind of limiting beliefs that you might have in each of these areas. The best one that I can give you is finances. How many people want to be a millionaire? How many people want to be a millionaire? Seriously, raise your hand. Yeah. But not everybody truly believes that they can get there. Does that make sense? A lot of people have to go in and root out the limiting beliefs that would prevent them from getting that kind of money. Maybe they believe that it's going to take too much work, that there's not enough hours in the day. Is that really true? Is that really true? That's a great question to ask yourself when you encounter one of these limiting beliefs. Because if it were really true that it can't be done, then we would have no millionaires. It wouldn't exist if it weren't possible. You just have to figure out what it looks like for you. Something to think about. So with that, I will close and I will ask if there's any questions.
I've got one.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so talk about the slide before this one, you were talking about how you sit down and hold your business partners accountable. Maybe give us some specific examples of activities or things that business partners can do, or topics that can be discussed so we can more accurately, or I guess, I don't know exactly the term I'm looking for,
Sure.
but without any sort of prejudice, hold each other accountable.
Absolutely.
To our
So would it be
business goals.
useful for us to do a professional wheel of life together? Would that be useful? Yeah. Great, let's do it. So I'll pull up the categories again. Grab your piece of paper and figure out, what are those categories for your business? What are those categories for your business? Now, on the left there, I did it for a business and also for a professional, because we have some people that are, high-level VPs, et cetera, in their businesses, and that can be very useful as well. If you're one of those people, you might sit down with your boss and share this with your boss. What? Yes. Because that demonstrates, being proactive and wanting to improve as well. Okay, so figure out what those categories are for you. Then you would sit down with your business partner and say, okay, again, these are my hypothetical for a business owner. They might look totally different for you. But let's just say marketing. You look at your wheel of life for your business and you identify that marketing is an area that your business is lacking. You and your partner could sit down and come up with a list of, these are the things that we could do in this area of marketing. Maybe you decide you're going to take on social media. And maybe you decide you're going to take on print media. And then you can hold each other accountable for that. Get really specific. That's the one thing that I would really foot stomp. Get really specific. What does it mean? So you taking on social media, what does that mean? Are you responsible for 50 posts a day? Are you responsible for 3? What does that look like? Because if you decide that it means 3 and he thinks it means 50, well, now you guys got a problem.
Right.
So be really specific about what it is that you're going after. Maybe instead you say 3 or more. So now he's able to hold you to that standard of 3, but when you do 50, you make him happy too. But by having that conversation, you know what he's hoping for, and he knows what you're thinking is how it's going to play out. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? What's another example that we could use in business? What's a challenge that you've experienced maybe?
I'd say,
Oh,
one of the things that we've run into is for the members of the leadership team at the organization, it's difficult to figure out the separation between working in the business and working on the business. So how much of the time on a day-to-day basis you get pulled into client meetings, or you're dealing with a particular escalation situation versus I'm thinking about strategy, or I'm thinking about long-term goals, and then how do you divide up that work across the leadership team? That would be a challenge that we've run into.
absolutely. And so one way that you might address this, and using the tools that I've provided you today, again, please know when working with clients, there's lots and lots more tools, and we spend a lot of time digging into how you would address that very problem. But speaking to the tools that I've provided you today, first is, what is everybody's perception of the situation? Does everybody feel like they're being pulled in different directions? And if they do, is there a way that you could kind of root out that limiting belief? Because the truth is, you got involved in this business because you wanted to be involved in different areas. So is there a way, when you schedule yourself, that you can show up in state as your business owner? Show up in state as that marketing professional for that marketing meeting. Show up in state for that strategic planner. And kind of put on that different hat. Does that part make sense? And then additionally, when you're talking with your partners, looking at the wheel of life, divvying up the responsibilities accordingly to make sure that no individual is overtasked with one particular area. That's how I've seen it work in practice. It works really well. It's not always easy decisions that flow, because people get involved in business because they're very passionate about what they do. And so a lot of times they want to participate in all pieces of the puzzle when you have partners. But in practice, I've found that it's very useful when you have one person or a small team of people that are leading a specific area. They have the lead. They are fully responsible for it. You might have a subsidiary task, but ultimately they're responsible for that piece of the puzzle. Any other questions? Yes.
So it's a little bit loud, sorry. It's more on the personal side than on the professional side.
Absolutely.
Fully appreciative that having a coach would be helpful before that stage, and trying to convince ourselves that your suggested approach, which sounds fantastic, is useful. How do we as individuals try to accurately assess our wheel of life as we get started and try to figure it all out when we don't have a mentor or a guide to walk us through that, to kind of convince ourselves that this is good, this is worthwhile, and I can make progress?
Yeah, great question. So the truth is, we all have an internal barometer, and you are the best judge of your own life. Nobody, even when you do have a coach, it's not about judgment. My job is in no way to judge what's going on for you in your life. My job is to help you open your eyes to see what's really going on in your life by asking really, really quality questions. And you can do the same thing. So, for example, if we look at this, that's why I had you list the key activities that are involved in each. And so a way to dig even deeper is to look at some of these key activities and rate yourself in those areas and kind of take an average. The truth is, it's about your perception of your life. So as you start, you may give yourself a 5 or a 6. And as you improve, it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. But as your standard improves, so will your goals. Your standard for what's possible in that area will also increase. Does that answer your question? Yeah, it's all about where you are and your perception of it. If you think that your finances are terrible, then they are. They're not to your standard, period, dot. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It's what is your perception for what you want in your life and where do you want to go. Yeah, my pleasure. Any other questions? Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you playing full out with me today. Being little kids, putting away your social media and your computers. Oh my gosh. So now you can hop back on Twitter and talk about how amazing I was. Okay? Have a great day. Thank you.